Good evening. Is that Michael?
It is. How you?
Hey, Michael, how are you?
Not too bad.
Yeah, as always, we're going to give it a couple minutes, let people join in.
Understand.
Trump ultimately lost his casinos. This one was acquired out of
He's gonna
bankruptcy
hear
by
what you got
real
going on in the
billionaire
background.
Carl Icahn. It had been sitting empty for
Hey, Scott. I'm not sure if it's just on my end, but for some reason I'm not able to hear anything. Can you just check to make sure you're not muted?
And I thought he just hadn't said anything yet.
Boy, I wonder how long I've been talking with that off.
It's six after, so about 4 minutes.
About 4 minutes, I've been rambling to myself. Well, hey, ain't that wonderful? I guess I'll go back and start again because I guess I didn't get our little intro started. Oh my, that's funny. I didn't even notice I was talking to myself. I'm sort of trying to check the mic and even explaining that part of how I bumped the button. Oh, I see Jackie. Hey, Jackie boy. You're muted as well, so I don't hear you. I see your sign language. Anyway, welcome everybody who's joining me tonight. We'll try this with sound now. All of our meetings are an environment of education and awareness and not an open market for the sale, purchase, or distribution of cannabis. We do not encourage or condone illegal behavior of any kind. Welcome everybody who's joined me. I'm doing a repeat. Welcome to everybody who's joined me online, anybody who may be watching us live streaming to our YouTube channel, and also welcome to anybody who may be watching this later as a recording. My name is Scott Weldon. I am the Executive Director of the South Carolina chapter of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, also known as South Carolina NORML. And our agenda tonight pretty much is going to cover the agenda we posted is pretty much going to cover 2 items. One, it is a wrap up for our membership drive. Somebody give me a thumbs up to make sure that you hear me. Jackie, you
Yep,
hear
you're
me?
good.
Okay, thank you. I didn't want to kind of go in. You hear me somewhat? Okay, I got a thumbs up there. And we got a couple of things. Okay, cool. We're going to kind of talk about a wrap up for our membership drive, which we'll get into in just a little bit. We will do our raffle for the game that was part of a premium for the membership drive. And we are going to talk about starting to potentially plan a live/virtual event. Probably in July is the date we're tentatively looking at. So we'll kind of get into that conversation a little bit in a couple minutes. But first, let's start with the membership drive information. We ran our membership drive very similarly, if I think that came out right, to how we've run it in the past couple of years. The only real difference I think we did with it this year is, besides just adding a couple of extra merch items.
I want to remind folks that schools are open right now in places all over this country. And actually, more schools are open right now.
I'm going to remute you, Jackie. I didn't want to hear the news. But where was I? We did add the drawing for the game. I happen to see these cannabis and other drugs is this one. My collection is mostly cannabis related games. Anyway, we saw this game as an opportunity to try and get a little bit more interest in membership. And we generally start our membership drives a couple of weeks before Christmas, if not even, I think about the first, well, actually, we usually try and start them by Black Friday. So just around Thanksgiving. Actually, this year I started announcing it a little bit before Thanksgiving because we want that conversation at the Thanksgiving tables. If people actually met in person this past year, probably not. But then, of course, the following day is generally Black Friday. And we want to be one of those that people are kind of spending their virtual dollars, well, their real dollars on virtually as they start going out to shop online. And we did get a few. Actually, I thought it was kind of interesting. One, specifically said, please don't, connect them to the email list or anything like that until after Christmas. I don't want the surprise to be spoiled. And I think a couple people got them as gifts for themselves. So that's one of the reasons we try and start a little bit before the holiday. We run it about 6 weeks into the year with the additional premiums to try and again inspire people to join early. It is an annual membership fee. So we do that annually. We run that. And to me, the coolest thing so far this year's new badges. I don't know how much it's glaring. With the new branding from National, if you can see that little mark on the top, that's their new service mark. It's supposed to be reminiscent of a marijuana leaf, but not necessarily a marijuana leaf, um, to try and be more uh, acceptable to soccer moms and old people like me and things like that, instead of having a big pot leaf emblazoned on thing on everything. So they have both on their website and their merch. They've really kind of changed a lot of that. It's sort of fortuitous for us that we decided to do our name change before we started getting too much new merch with the new logo. I think we had a couple of stickers and buttons, and that was about it. Um, we do have some designs for new T-shirts. We are going to start looking into getting those now that our membership drive is done, and get the new T-shirts. They are most probably going to be black, one color. Um, they will have South Carolina normal on the front. On the back, it will say working to reform marijuana laws. Um, and we're looking for short sleeve, I'm guessing, at this point. I know the design that National sent me was on a long sleeve. Um, I know here in South Carolina, I tend to wear a short sleeve a lot more of the year than a long sleeve. Although, as we move forward, we may end up doing both. Because we had at one point a long sleeve for Low Country Normal. I know I got one of those. Um, but anyway, that is kind of how our membership drive went. To be quite honest with you, I was just Thursday. What day are we today? Okay, yesterday, Tuesday. I was on a call with National, and we were talking about building new chapters. And although we're not necessarily new, we are definitely microscopic in size for the most part. And in the conversation, it was brought up that Virginia Normal, to date this year, has added about 120 um, new members. And the other chapter, and I forget who it was they were talking about, they deemed themselves a small chapter, but they end up by the end of the year getting about 150 members through the year. Our drive brought us a new membership, including myself, 15 new members for the year. So you will see us doing promotions for memberships continually throughout the year. And one of the things, let me see, I don't have her on, is we have a new board member, our secretary, who is accepted the responsibility of kind of taking on um, membership tracking, membership management, and not tracking per se, but our membership management, and also developing and working on and making sure that we have uh, member value opportunities for all of our members. Which sort of rolls me into our next conversation, is talking about creating an event for this year. Um, we have had an event on our schedule for 2020 for a while. Originally, it was called a Freedom Festival, FRWEEDOM. I had to get the word weed in there. I thought it was clever. But as time progressed, it really didn't, in my mind, play out to be that good of a representation of what we want to do. Um, we changed it for a while to, well, at that time we were still low country, so it was like the uh, Charleston Cannabis something. Um, Ended up settling at the time at the South Carolina Cannabis Convocation right now. Convocation is a gathering, coming together. Um, I don't know how well that really rings to people, or rolls off the tongue, but we really need to kind of start getting out again, and trying to find a way to have, socially distant, safe participation in events. Um, I would almost prefer that we were doing it almost right now, or during the legislative process early in the year. Um, we're not really set up to do that at this point, and the plan has always been at this point to try and do it near 4th of July. That's why the freedom kind of concept. Right now we're on 710, and for those of you that know, 710 is sort of the um, 420 of concentrates, so dabs and waxes and butters and things like that. The reason being, if you take the number 710, flip it upside down, it spells oil. And so right now it's kind of scheduled there because it's near 4th of July, but it's not conflicting with 4th of July. Um, and we're just kind of putting it out there and starting the discussion on it. Our thoughts on it, for the most part, and again, people, if you want to throw in your ideas, comments, or concerns or ideas, our plan for now, my plan for now is to have an event where we can invite a limited number of people that have a nifty little membership card like this will either get discounted or complimentary passes to get in. Um, and we will have hopefully set up at that location some different vendors vendors and information booths. I guess is more the thought I'm thinking of. Uh, Partially because the fight for reform of marijuana laws is a civil rights issue, um, and I'm hoping to have an event where we can include other organizations that are trying to. I'm looking at some suggestions on the chat here, that we can sort of include other organizations that the people they try and help are affected by cannabis laws. The example I tend to use quite often is folks that are maybe trying to help the homeless or even the underemployed or the poor. Um, may not realize that a marijuana conviction on your record will prevent you from getting access to public housing. You have to check a little box that says, yes, I was convicted of a crime. Um, if you wanted to try and advance your education, you'll probably get turned down for student loans because you got to check that box. Yes, I was convicted of a drug crime or convicted of a crime. Um, it's a far-reaching situation. You want to get a better job, but guess what? They pre-employment piss test, and you're using for medical reasons in a state that doesn't find your medical reasons valid. Um, you don't check the box on that one, but there's a lot of places that make you pee in a cup. It's interesting. I was talking to a business owner earlier. Actually, I talked to a couple of them recently this week. Um, but I find that if you start the conversation with folks that have started and run their own businesses, many of them have done it for reasons because they didn't want to pee in a cup to get a job. They said, I'm not peeing in a cup. Damn, I'd rather cut lawns for a living or something like that. I kind of laugh about it because that is the story of my son. He just refused to pee in a cup. He ended up getting, I don't think he even had a car at the time. He got himself a push mower and a broom to sweep up after himself and started pushing it around his neighborhood. And he has built it to a full-time job that he's been running over 20, I'd say 25, 24 years or something like that. Um, hasn't had a pee in a cup, and he's rather happy, and he works hard. I give him that. He is a hard worker. His clients love him because he is a hard worker. He's a meticulous worker. He edges. He cleans up all the grass afterwards. I think everything's bagged. It's not like an option. You don't get a choice. It gets bagged. We clean your yard. That kind of thing. So anyway, that's sort of the long story on some of that. We want to be able to include other organizations that are affected. Another option, another example, one of our members in the conversation uh, works with a nursing organization that supports cannabis. We would like to have organizations like that represented and being able to. I'm viewing it as in the virtual realm. We're going to have those folks that are there. Hopefully, put together a little video that we can sort of post to our website. and then do some live streaming, live broadcast. Oh, geez, I just saw some hands go up, and I think what this is showing may, if it's in order, Michael's hand went up first. So I'm going to shut up for a minute and let Michael chime in. What do you got? Or Mike Harvey. Mike, what do you have for me?
Hey, the only question you were talking about the having to do a piss test, and even even if we just look at simple CBD, many of us have that same problem with getting jobs because of pissing hot with just CBD, not even having to be, good old stuff.
Correct. And the military, the government is very strict on finding any cannabinoids in your system. Kristen, you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to add in. I know that obviously it's different than normal, but there is the Drug Policy Alliance. They're doing a new thing right now called Uprooting the Drug War. And they have a really interesting website where it goes into how the drug war has such profound effects on more than just what people typically think of at the top of their head. So I'll send that link to the chat just so people are able to look at it and see. But it's definitely interesting to read. And I feel like we could utilize it as a resource.
Right. I'll probably save that link then too, just to kind of go back and look at it a little closer, because we do, as our normal organization, need to. I knew I was going to hit that wire on the side of my head. We do need to kind of up our game on focusing on what it is our mission is. Breaking it down a little bit better. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to throw that into a window over here. Cool. Okay. On the next step on that kind of event, besides having nonprofit organizations or other organizations that are related in either the helping the downtrodden or helping with medical needs, is getting the crafters in there. That's another way. For us, normal South Carolina, normal, this would be our annual fundraising event for the most part. So as I try to make clear to my board, as much as we're a nonprofit, nonprofits still need money to work and operate, and so we're hoping to get some fees from vendors. I'm thinking for the other nonprofits, I don't want to do a fee per se because I want as much participation, but maybe we'll ask them for some sort of door prize gifts and things like that. Um, but beyond that, I do want to reach out to the community. Well, another thing that someone was talking about not too long ago is having a booth that's maybe set up to talk more about the hemp laws, and how to get your license here in South Carolina, and all kinds of, how to grow. So there's all kinds of options that we have for speakers. And if you know of any, send us your suggestions, because what we're hoping to do is, outside of having our informational booths and our vendor booths and crafter booths, which again, we would hopefully try and get that interacted virtually as well as live, would then be to, oh geez, I just almost blanked on myself here. I did blank. Oh, do virtual events, kind of like these Zoom meetings here. Get some featured speakers to come in and basically do an interview and chat with participants. Again, we're sort of picturing a small fee for, because we would have to limit the size of them, um, but a small fee for participation, and flipping back to member value, trying to give either complimentary or discounted tickets to our membership. So don't forget to get your membership. um, I am going to kind of do one thing, which I probably should have talked about when I wrapped up the membership drive. I'm going to get this little cup here. This is the yogurt my wife likes. Just thought you might be interested. I've been shaking this thing around all day, but I'm going to give it another couple of shakes. You can maybe see down there, we've got some tickets in there. We've got at least last names written down, which I don't think I wanted to do. Oh, oops, one flew out. And actually, for me to be able to get names, it's probably easier for me to open another window on this computer. make sure I know who is who. And all right, that's enough shaking. I think I'm going to reach in here, flip them around a little bit while I'm not looking. I'm going to pull one out. And we have number 928347, which nobody knows what their numbers are because it's just attached to your paperwork here in my office. Um, and it is not a participant that's with us here tonight. It's somebody that has joined us on our calls before. But we have a winner selected. I am just going to give a first name of Michael. I'm going to put that right there, and we will get that packed up and shipped out to them. If you missed your, did not win, you can go to our website and you can purchase the game, which also helps to support our efforts in reforming marijuana laws. And it gives you something to do while you're stuck in the house through some of this pandemic. Get some family members around and play a drug dealing game. um, all right, where are we time rise? We're running at about 7:30, 7:27. I'm seeing on my clock. Um, I do want to kind of point it out or throw it out there if anybody wants to unmute themselves and talk a little bit about their thoughts on um, potential ideas for a safe event. Um,
Uh,
I know.
I'm sorry. I actually just had wanted to say when you mentioned the idea of a speaker on how to grow, I really like that idea. I think that would be this should be included as part of the discussion overall, especially as we try to push for ultimately the right to grow some amount or in some way at home.
Right. And I mean, I would think it would probably be more beneficial for our viewers, for our supporters to have something that's more focused on indoor grow, home grow, than than outdoor grow. Um, but
Yeah, definitely. If especially, uh,
okay.
yeah.
That's what I was kind of thinking. That would definitely be more of a benefit for folks. I know it would be for me. I haven't tried to grow cannabis for quite a long time, and it was actually before the LED light uh, technology got to where it is today. So heat was generally a huge problem. And as anybody who has grown before, they'll know smell is definitely a huge problem in an illegal state, especially. All right. We're going to start hammering this out over the next couple weeks, I am hoping. Real quick, I do like to mention on all of our, well, I haven't always, but on our Wednesday calls that we are trying to keep an eye on what's going on both federal and state level legislation. There's not a whole lot going on federally. There's been one bill uh, introduced so far that I'm aware of. That is a reschedule from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2. And there was an announcement by Booker, Blumenauer, and Wyden. I think those are the three. No, I'm sorry. Booker. Yeah. Oh, crap. I'm blanking on his name. Schumer. There we go. And Wyden to push forward on, descheduling. It would basically we all know it as the MORE Act. The MORE Act though is no more under the new kind of triple sponsorship here. It's probably going to come up with some new name. Matter of fact, we were sort of at National asked for some suggestions or advice on naming it. Originally, the MORE Act was actually considered to be called the CORE Act. And because it was going to be called the Cannabis Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act, uh, partially because the act itself calls for the end of using the word marijuana and referring it to as cannabis, its scientific name. I'm not sure if I got Evan posted in the comments. Sled McMaster said they would not oppose cannabis. It was no longer federally scheduled. I know one I hear a lot from our legislators is if it was FDA approved. I haven't heard him say if it was no longer scheduled. I that'd be interesting.
It's my understanding that McMaster's stance is he will not go against the wishes of law enforcement to create that friction, but it's SLED's, from what I understand, a SLED official, and I'll have to pull up where I read it, has said their issue is simply we don't want to cross into, and it could just be a cop out, but they're saying we don't want to cross into, I guess, what is essentially nullification, whatever. So
Yeah,
I
that would
see
be
that as
Mark
being the
Keel.
ultimate path, possibly, um, if that bill in the House has any chance in the Senate.
Yeah, SLED, which is Chief Mark Keel, has said a number of different things opposing cannabis. So even if it was federally descheduled, he would probably fall back to, oh, well, it's not FDA approved, or, oh, it's, yeah. I hear from other sheriffs or other law enforcement in other towns all these horrible things that will happen, although they're not backed up by any facts. And actually, most of the facts and research kind of prove him wrong. He likes to talk about what ifs and things like that quite often. Um, yeah, it's a good sign. And as I mentioned I briefly in last night's conversation at our public meeting, with a democratically controlled House and Senate at the federal level, and these three legislators looking to advance this legislation. It is still being drafted, rewritten. One of the things that was complained about the MORE Act was the tax structure of it. So I know that's one of the things that's being addressed. Also, the Safe Banking Act is being rewritten, redrafted for resubmission, as well as a few others. Um, Occasionally on a Monday night on Normal's Facebook page, you can hear at 8 p.m. You can hear our political director Justin Streckel talking about what's going on federal level legislation. Um, Although he doesn't, I don't know if he generally announces it. It's sort of excuse me, catch can type thing so far. Um, but that's usually pretty informative. He is up there on Capitol Hill quite often, and walking down the halls. He was telling a story the other day where he was walking down the halls with this uh, new representative on our board, Steve's, the travel person. Apparently, pretty popular. I don't watch travel reviews and stuff and all that very often, but apparently they were walking through the halls of Congress, and one of the legislators recognized the guy and was like excited to talk to him because this legislator and his wife love to travel, and they follow his travel reviews and things like that. And so they chatted briefly about that, and then he said, "Oh well, legislator, I'm actually here to talk about marijuana law reform." And the MORE Act, I think, I don't know if it's the MORE Act specifically, but marijuana law reform. And for almost immediately, the guy head kind of went down. And I think he turned to his aide or whatever, and says, yeah, we got to get to that appointment. And they shuffle away and they don't want to talk about it anymore. Um, but
Just so
it's
you know,
nice.
his name is Rick Steve. Sorry,
Rick
it's
Steve.
Rick Steve.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I was blanking. I knew it. It's like when I watched Jeopardy. Yeah, I knew that answer. Dang. So thank you, Krista. I appreciate that. Rick Steves. Um, what other comments are we getting here? Interesting point. Once we get a neighboring state or two, last I heard, South Carolina is the only state in the nation that does not have a border with a state that has legalized at least medical, if not recreational. We are kind of still behind this little border of illegal states. Or is that changing? Yes, it is changing. Oh, somewhere on Facebook, I scrolled by a map, though. There is this little section that includes South Carolina. That it is illegal. What else is the rest of your comment, real quick? It is, and I've actually heard a lot of conversation about, if it was legalized and sold in a dispensary and taxed heavily, would you purchase there, or would you just continue to get it from your regular guy? Um, that's yet to be seen. I know they talk about in California that they thought legalization would really sort of affect the black market, and apparently it hasn't affected it, at least not as much as they had hoped it had. Um,
And the
so
reasons for that is a great topic for discussion. Just throwing that out. You had mentioned earlier any topic.
I'm always asking for topics. Yeah.
The legislation and the loopholes, and just it all goes back to just poor legislation that evolved, I guess, over time.
Let me make myself a quick note here.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that'd be a really good topic because there are so many things. You look at California. Although California is technically a legal state, not every county has dispensaries. So, those areas are definitely have a higher um, black market. If you look at the price of black market versus what it's going to cost you in a dispensary, it's cheaper to get a black market. And since insurance isn't covering it, if I'm going to only pay $40 an ounce, why go to a dispensary and spend 80?
Mm-hmm.
80 is a little safer, but healthier.
Or
Right.
the multitude of craft growers that will ship it to you in the mail for very low prices. So, and that's where I think, there's got to be ultimately a way for the people that are growing the stuff people want to be at the table.
And you made a real good point in my mind when you said craft grower, because I see the market moving forward as growing similarly to the craft brew market. Um, and yet, when you get legislation and licensing that only allows 2 or 3 or very limited number of growers, that's not going to stop those craft growers from growing. I mean, to be quite honest with you, I think one of the benefits of prohibition was that it drove so many growers underground to start developing their own strains. And now today we have this variety of strains that we probably wouldn't have had they, legalized or criminalized, been able to grow more commercially. Um, y- Heck, I like to maybe kind of compare it to tomatoes. If you ever go to the supermarket and buy a tomato, and then you have a neighbor or yourself that grows them at home, and you have that tomato and you eat them, I mean, really, I rarely buy tomatoes from the store because they have no taste. To me, that'd be like buying, store bought weed. Probably doesn't,
That,
I'd have to question some of it at some point.
yeah, that's it. I just wanted to share real quick. I was told that like around the turn of the century, early 1900s, there was a famous variety of watermelon from Sumter, South Carolina, that apparently people would drive from around the southeast for it, but it wasn't very easy to ship, especially back then. It had like a thinner skin, but apparently, there's so many varieties of a lot of things. But to tie back in with cannabis, I think you're right. We wouldn't have what we had. It's kind of an interesting catch-22, if that's the right word. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, that's kind of off topic about what we were talking about tonight. So Kevin, I appreciate that. I'm going to I have that on my list here now. I have a new topic on my topic list. I'll do a little research, see if I can find somebody to come talk to us a little bit about that. Without getting into too much. And it's almost something where um, I'm going to be starting a list for topics for the July event. Hopefully, it falls in July for the proposed event. Um, that may not necessarily be one of them. We had talked about the grow one, which is definitely one I want to talk about that. Um, and we're going to start working on that list to kind of come up with some stuff. Um, and get going on this. So, but yeah, folks, well, if you ever think about any other good topics, keep me in mind. I was on the sestatehouse.gov site earlier today, just real quick checking the schedules for the Senate and the House to see if any of the legislation that's been proposed that's cannabis related has any meetings scheduled in their committees yet. And I did not see any. Um, I was looking more specifically, well, specifically for compassionate care. in the Senate and the Medical Affairs Committee, and and also there's another one I was looking for, S335, which is basically a legalization descheduling bill in South Carolina. And neither of those could I find on schedule in their committees. And sometimes you have to go and figure out what committee the bill's in, go find that bill on a schedule, and then click in and look at the agenda and scroll through the agenda. Hopefully you can find out if that bill's you're looking for in the agenda. Sometimes the bill numbers are actually listed on the first page before you have to click into the agenda. But anyway, I haven't seen any of ours kind of really coming up. And I know I had heard a quote from Senator Tom Davis a few weeks ago when he did an interview, I want to say in mid to late January, that he expected it to move out of its subcommittee in January and have a hearing and possibly a vote by early February. And now we're already in mid February. So I'm keeping my eye out on that. We will keep you posted if I see anything happen. Let me kind of real quick take a peek at what other comments we got in the comment thread before I go too far. Okay, nothing new down there that we haven't kind of discussed. So I got 7:42. Unless anybody else has some other things they want to chime in with, I'm going to kind of end our conversation and thank you all for joining me here. I will be back here as always every Wednesday night. Evan's asking if anybody's from the Midlands area right now. I think most of the folks on the call are from here in the Charleston area. For the most part, maybe even Charleston County, all of them. But we're trying to grow that. So, oh, Mike is up in Columbia. I didn't realize that. Cool. Our
Yeah, I
news.
thought I remembered someone saying that Chris, well, they had the same representative as me.
Oh, okay, okay. We do have a new secretary on our board. We will hopefully introduce her at one of these meetings soon. But she's also up in the Columbia area, and we are hopefully counting on our folks up in the Columbia area to find us a venue for this event. Because we're hoping to have the event. And originally I had planned it for Charleston because I'm in Charleston. It'd be easier for me to organize an event here in Charleston. Um, so I'm kind of, if we do this in the Columbia area, which again, it sounds to me like a more ideal location, just because it's more centrally located in the state, we can hopefully invite people from different corners of the state to come and join us. We still have to kind of come up with social distancing, safe event numbers, and that will probably be determined by the venue and the venue size. And then, of course, the number of vendors we have to, and other organizations will have to kind of include those into our numbers that are permissible. But now we know we at least got a couple people up in that area. So we'll sort of ask you as we get together on some of these other meetings for some thoughts on locations. We do have one suggestion so far that I believe our secretary is looking into, and cool. That's nice. Thank you for adding that in there, Evan. I really want to grow South Carolina normal to be inclusive of the entire state. Um, and representative of the entire state as best we can as we transition as we've been transitioning to the new name. That's been part of our discussions quite a bit. So thank you for that. Then I'm just going to wrap things up. So we will talk to you all next Wednesday, 7 p.m. If you can join us. Otherwise, keep an eye out on our Facebook page, our Instagram, or Twitter, or we've been really trying to step up our blogging on our website, normalsc.org. That's NORMLSC.org. If you need to contact us, go there, reach out through our contact page. And don't forget, you can always go and check out our YouTube channel and check out some of our old meetings and videos and things like that. That's all I have for you tonight. Thank you for joining me. We will see you next week. Bye-bye now.